Well, welcome to the 700 Club, and thanks so much for joining with us. The focus in the Middle East has been on disarming Hamas, and in the meantime, Hezbollah has been rebuilding its power in Lebanon. And now Israel is fighting back, launching strikes against the terrorist group.
Meanwhile, more evidence has been released linking Hamas to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. Chris Mitchell has the story from Jerusalem.
The Israel Defense Forces say they've completed a series of strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure and weapons facilities in southern Lebanon. The IDF says Hezbollah is working to reestablish its terrorist infrastructure and poses a clear and present danger to the state of Israel. Before the strikes, the IDF issued an evacuation warning in order to prevent civilian casualties since the weapon facilities are in the middle of populated areas. A Knesset briefing reportedly warns that Hezbollah, with help from Iran, is rebuilding its military strength faster than Israeli strikes can stop it. The impacts of Israel's 2023-2024 military campaign are fading, and that Hezbollah continues to smuggle in weapons through Syria and by sea, and is also producing its own arms. The IDF says the attacks are just a preview of what's to come if the Lebanese army doesn't fully disarm Hezbollah. On Thursday, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun condemned the bombings, but said that negotiations are the only way to end the nearly daily Israeli attacks on his country. The U.S. is pressuring the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah, but in an open letter, Hezbollah says it will resist any attempts to disarm it and warns Beirut against negotiations with the, quote, Zionist enemy. Meanwhile, the IDF released documents that chronicle the incestuous relationship between Hamas and UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. The IDF uncovered details of Hamas operatives employed by UNRWA and documents revealing Hamas's use of UNRWA. Just the latest evidence of how the UN group and Hamas have worked hand in hand. But amid the concerns about terrorism, there was also some hopeful news. President Trump announcing on Truth Social that Kazakhstan would be joining the Abraham Accords. The president posting, Kazakhstan is the first country of my second term to join the Abraham Accords, the first of many. Blessed are the peacemakers. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, Israel Ambassador to the U.S., Shaquille Leiter, is with us now from Washington. Ambassador Leiter, welcome back to the 700 Club. It's good to have you.
Good morning. Good Friday morning, Gordon. It's good to be with you.
How serious is this threat from Hezbollah? Before the October 7th, I heard that they had an army the size of a European power, and that apparently was dismantled. But now are they rebuilding to that same strength?
Yes, well, Hezbollah had really a standing army of tens of thousands of well-trained and highly armed terrorists right on our border. As a matter of fact, there were tunnels that they had built, and you have to understand these tunnels are like underground highways. They can actually move vehicles through many of these tunnels, poised to attack our northern communities. And we had to empty out all of our northern communities, about 70,000 people who were evacuated from their homes for over a year. We've allowed the people to come back because we degraded Hezbollah, but they're attempting to reconstitute and reestablish themselves, posing a very serious existential threat to Israel.
Well, let's talk about two groups that were supposedly trying to rein this in. Well, one would be the Lebanese government through the Lebanese army. Is there any hope of that?
Well, in your report from Jerusalem, it was stated that President Aoun would like to do this through negotiations, but we're happy to sit down in negotiation. That's not really an issue. We don't have a law in our books forbidding us to sit with the Lebanese. Unfortunately, the Lebanese still have a law which prevents them from actually sitting directly with Israelis. They should change that law and we should negotiate. But the real issue here is not negotiation. The real issue here is that there's a ceasefire agreement signed, sealed, and delivered, brokered by the United States, which calls on Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah. They certainly have to act on that, and we need to see South Lebanon free of Hezbollah domination, because otherwise the Lebanese people continue to be under Hezbollah control, and we continue to be endangered by Hezbollah's presence. They have to be disarmed. It's just very simple. And the real problem is that it's not clear that the Lebanese army has the ability or perhaps the will to actually do it.
Well, in times past, it was like the Lebanese army was subservient to them, and so to say that somehow that's turned and they will have the authority and the ability to do it. I assume the UN has no hope here. I remember vividly seeing video of a tunnel right underneath a UN watchtower with UN troops behind a fence. And so here you have, and supposedly a ceasefire zone, a zone where the UN is supposed to secure the border, and here it's open and obvious what's going on. So if Lebanon can't do it and the UN can't do it, is it just up to Israel to do it?
Well, you know, a few months ago, the Chancellor of Germany said that Israel is doing the dirty work for Western civilization in the Middle East. We may have to. We prefer not to. We've been at war with Hamas and Hezbollah, with Iran, really, for 2 years, Iranian proxies. You know, Iran built what they call a ring of fire around Israel. Israel's a tiny country the size of New Jersey. And the idea of this Iranian ring of fire was to attack us all at once on all fronts and render our ability to defend ourselves impossible. And we've degraded Iran with the help of the United States, of course, and President Trump's administration, and his bold decision to use the B-2s to strike their nuclear weapons installation. We've degraded Iran and its proxies, but we haven't totally defeated them. So they're trying to reconstitute Hezbollah, to reconstitute Lebanon, Iran, which, of course, is trying itself to rebuild its ballistic missile program, its nuclear weapons program, and Hamas, which still occupies 50% of Gaza. We have great hopes for the ceasefire brokered by the United States and many of the countries in the Middle East that signed on to it. But Hamas is still in power in 50% of Gaza. They're still dominating the population. They, too, are trying to reconstitute. You had a very important report about the function of UNRWA, the UN agency in Gaza, which actually 50% of its employees were Hamas. So they played a very, very unhelpful, I would say, destructive role in Gaza. And UNIFIL in South Lebanon, the same thing. The UN has been really counterproductive in every respect in both theaters of confrontation.
Well, it looks like the UN has actually provided cover for European funding and even U.S. funding going into supposedly to help the Palestinians. And it just seems to be, again, an arm of this radical group. How important is it for Israel to finally ban UNRWA? And is it what will it take for it to finally just go away?
We've banned UNRWA in Israel. We don't want to see UNRWA anywhere in Israel or around our borders. And we've actually advocated for terminating UNIFIL. And hopefully, in a year's time, we won't see UNIFIL in South Lebanon either, because they actually are providing cover. I mean, there are some great stories about, UNIFIL soldiers getting a flat tire somewhere in South Lebanon and having no one else to call. They call Israeli forces. And we come in, we help them with their flat tire and get them out of a sticky situation in some village in South Lebanon. And then they file a report to the UN Security Council that we're in violation of the ceasefire agreement. So UNIFIL has to go, UNRWA has to go. The UN really has to get out of its various programs in the Middle East. One of the biggest blood libel, modern blood libel labeled against the state of Israel and the Jewish people was starvation and genocide in Gaza. This was leveled by UN officials. It was a complete fabrication. There was no starvation. There was certainly no genocide. This is literally a modern-day blood libel. And these people have no business taking part in any way, shape, or form in peacemaking in the Middle East. And it's important to emphasize, we don't have a border dispute with either Lebanon or Gaza. We have no territorial claims in Lebanon. We're talking about organizations that reject the very right of Israel to exist. And that's what we're fighting for, very existence. And, you know, we're put in a position very often to say thank you to people who say we have a right to exist. You don't tell Belgium they have a right to exist. You don't tell Mexico they have a right to exist. And we don't need to be to applaud anybody who says we have a right to exist. Of course we have a right to exist. And we have a right to defend ourselves. And we're going to do that because nobody else is going to do it for us. And again, we're talking about a battle for our very existence. We don't have any territorial claims. We want the people of Gaza to live in wholesome peace. We want the people of Lebanon to live in wholesome peace. And the sooner we rid these areas of these tyrannical powers, these Islamic powers that really deny people any sorts of freedom, whether it's the people of Gaza or the people of Lebanon, the Middle East is going to be better. So the UN can't claim that they're coming to, you know, help the people of Gaza. They're not. They're helping Hamas. And in Lebanon, they're helping Hezbollah. So get out of the way. Let the people of Lebanon express themselves. Let the people of Gaza express themselves, rid themselves of these tyrannical Iranian proxies, and everybody will be better for it.
I wish I shared your hope that the people of Gaza would actually kick them out, but I just remember the Arab Spring, all of the supposed hope of democracy coming to the Middle East. And what does Egypt do? They elect a Muslim Brotherhood. What do the people of Gaza do when they have free elections? It wasn't a majority vote, but Hamas seized power. They won the election. You know, it just seems to me the ideology is so deep that until the ideology ends, you're not going to see any kind of peace.
Well, Gordon, you're absolutely right, but I find hope in the fact, if you take a look at the UAE, for example, the Emirates de-radicalized after the Arab Spring. And what's interesting, in many conversations I've had with Emirati officials, they will tell you that the de-radicalization could happen relatively fast. If you rid the systems, governmental systems, whether it's education systems or government services, from Muslim Brotherhood, from extremists that are sponsored by Iran, the de-radicalization of society can happen relatively quickly. I mean, I did a lot of work in Abu Dhabi before the war, and I can tell you that I felt safer as a Jew in Abu Dhabi than I do in many European cities. So it could happen. MBS is trying to do the same in Saudi Arabia. We think he's going to succeed. We want to help in every way that we can assist that de-radicalization. There is a battle going on within the world of Islam for accommodation of Judeo-Christian civilization and those opposed to it. And I think that we're at the fulcrum of this contest between these two opposing forces. Iran is leading the force for opposition and rejection of Judeo-Christian civilization, and we're leading the battle for it. So this battle between Iranian proxies trying to destroy us and Israel is really a civilizational battle, and this is why we have to win it.
Well, let's talk about peace. Kazakhstan signing on to the Abraham Accords. Do you see more Muslim nations coming into the Accords?
I do. I think that what the president said yesterday is spot on. And if anybody can make it happen, it's President Trump. Kazakhstan, we've had a long-standing relationship with. We have trade and tourism, and we've been really partners since 1992, but in the context of the Abraham Accords, that allows an atmosphere where more and more countries can join formally, even those that we don't have a special relationship with. I think that, for example, Azerbaijan, with which we have a great relationship for many years, will formally join the Abraham Accords soon. They're a country of 10 million Muslims. And that's just fantastic. I mean, imagine that, a country like Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan join the Abraham Accords. There's no reason why they shouldn't or wouldn't really just to kind of get over the animus to Israel and the Jewish people. And once that happens, we can have a completely different world out there where Islamic civilization and Judeo-Christian civilization live side by side rather than in competition.
Well, Ambassador Leiter, we'll certainly pray for that and continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and not just say Israel has a right to exist, but Israel has a right to thrive. Thanks so much for being with us on the 700 Club.
Thank you, Gordon. Good to be with you as always.
All right. I do want to remind you of that blood libel that the ambassador talked about, this whole lie that there was a genocide in Gaza, that Israel was intentionally starving the people. In the aftermath of the ceasefire, turning whole areas over to Hamas, what does Hamas do? It goes out and kills Gazans. And it's quite clear how the starvation was happening. It's because Hamas was seizing all of the food aid and denying their own people the basics of life. Then you hear quite clearly their own leaders saying, we're never going to let the civilians into the tunnels. When Israel attacks, we absolutely want them to die. So we're going to keep them from any kind of protection. When you hear that libel, because it seems to have taken hold, and it's amazing to me, the leaders in the United States, not just on the student campuses, but to my absolute amazement, even American Jews were repeating this. When you hear it, please call it out for what it is. It's an absolute lie, and it needs to absolutely stop. Well, we now have some positive news for you. A youth organization called Dare to Share is asking young people to declare their faith to bring hope to their generation. It's part of Global Youth Evangelism Day, which takes place tomorrow. Lucille Toulousan tells us more about this one-day revival event to share the gospel.
Evangelism accelerates the discipleship process like nothing else does.
Youth groups, churches, and families worldwide will gather on-site or online Saturday for the Global Day of Youth Evangelism with the theme Be Like Jesus. Organized by Dare to Share, special video-based material available in English and Spanish will feature inspiring messages and practical training to prepare young people to share their faith.
The Day of Global Youth Evangelism is that day in the year when we call on the youth all over the world to really gather together in their respective countries, churches, communities, even their homes, as led by youth leaders. We will equip them. We will mobilize them. The best way to invite young people is to show them something bigger than themselves. They want change. They want something true. The church should start becoming that church that is authentic, sensitive to what they really need.
A highlight of the event is the Life in 6 Words gospel model.
First, God. God created us to be with Him. O, our sins separate us from God. S, sins. Sins cannot be removed by good deeds. P, paying the price for our sin, Jesus died and rose again. E, everyone who trusts in Him alone has eternal life. And L, life with Jesus starts now and lasts forever.
Pastor Eric Totañez sees this as a mission to rescue a lost generation and remind them that life, hope, and eternity are found in Christ alone. Dare to Share rallies young people from every nation to be equipped, empowered, and be part of a generation that stands bold for Jesus, bringing the good news to the world. Lucille Toulousan, CBN News, Tokyo.
Well, you can find out how to join the Day of Global Youth Evangelism tomorrow by just going to cbnnews.com.